Hello and welcome. We are so excited to welcome you to Living Cities Earth experience. Please enjoy the next few minutes, and we hope that this video and the ideas from our speakers will change your life to the better. Listen carefully. What particularly talks to you? What might have a chance to change your life and lives of people around you? Also, life of your place and our planet. We believe that you, the leaders of positive change, are those who define the future. So let's work together. And thank you for coming. Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining our program today. We're moving into our next session. It will be a pre-recorded interview, which Marilyn Hamilton took a couple of days ago, speaking with Jude Currivan. Jude is definitely a teacher and a friend of Living Cities Earth. She is a cosmologist, author of several very powerful books, very influential books. She is an evolutionary leader and a co-founder of the Whole World View organization. You might have heard about her work, and so I definitely feel that we are privileged to hear the thoughts and discussion that she had with Marilyn Hamilton. So let's switch on the recording. Thank you.
So good day, good Earth Day, whether you be in morning or midday or evening or darkest of night. I'm Marilyn Hamilton, and I'm one of the co-founders of Living Cities Earth. And today I have the privilege of having a conversation with Dr. Jude Currivan. And Jude Currivan is a perfect guest for us to have on Earth Day's summit because Jude is a cosmologist. She's a planetary healer, a futurist, and an author. She was previously one of the UK's best-known businesswomen, and she's the co-founder of Whole World View. And she's a member, like me, of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle. She holds a PhD in anthropological archaeology, researching ancient cosmologies, and also a master's degree in physics from Oxford University. She specialized in cosmology and quantum physics, and also is now an international best-selling author for The Cosmic Hologram, which was the book that preceded the one that I'm really interested in today, which is The Story of Gaia. And in that book, she shared a journey of our planetary home, our planet, emerging from a conscious, unified, and evolutionary universe. Jude's work integrates leading-edge science and universal wisdom teachings, aiming to serve humanity's understanding, experiencing, and embodying unitive consciousness. Welcome, Jude.
Thanks, Marilyn. It's my privilege, to be able to share what I feel is an amazing opportunity for all of us on this wonderful Earth Day. So it's a great honor and joy to be with you.
Thank you. And the technology allows us to have really an Earth Day that is not stuck or bounded by just chronos, but we have something that allows us to expand both before and after the particular day on the calendar, which is April the 22nd. You know, Jude, we were talking the other day in Whole World View meeting about the value of not only the story of Gaia as you told it, but also the unitive narrative. And the unitive narrative has particularly appealed to me because as you developed it in, I think, Conversations and Evolutionary Leaders, you've taken it further and it's now part of a UN cluster. And I really would like you to tell us a little bit about the unitive narrative because it seems to me it gives us the opportunity to share a story about Earth.
Thank you, Marilyn. And absolutely. I mean, we're a storytelling social species. We make meaning, we make sense of our world, of our lives through sharing stories. And the stories, if I tend to see stories like the waves on the top of an ocean and a narrative as the underlying ocean. So our narrative is essentially our worldview. And our worldview sort of underpins and frames not just our stories, but our choices in the world. And as a collective, our secular worldview in the last century and more has tended to be that of materialism and separation. And now, and I'm really excited about this, now we have the evidence at leading edge science on many, many different fields of study and across all scales of existence that's converging with universal wisdom teachings to tell an incredibly different, radically different, new and ancient story, but it's actually even deeper than a story. It's a narrative that can underpin and frame us in how we can choose to move forward together.
Thanks, Jude. You know, it was so made such an impact on me when I first read the overarching unitive narrative. I thought this really applies to cities, and I wanted to take the wave and make a story that related to cities. So at that time, we were just forming this new initiative of Living Cities Earth, and others were really receptive to that. So you'll find if you go to our website, which is livingcities.earth, the unitive narrative that we're working with that helps us weave together the story of cities as living systems.
Exactly.
So living systems that come from a living earth. So it really was a powerful opportunity, just perfect timing when you came forward with this. So thank you very much. The other thing that happened as we were talking about this, we had imagined, because Living Cities Earth is celebrating this coming out on Earth Day and sharing our vision with the world. And in fact, the over 50 co-founders have created a vision space. And as vision holders, we see it as quite emergent. So when I was called to express that, one of the places I often go when people ask me to talk about the future is the indigenous teaching of 7 generations. Of course, 7 generations I have for a long time recognized exist in the city. Pretty well most modern large cities have 7 generations alive. If you look back in the generations that are already preceding your and my life, which could go back still to some of us might have grandparents who are alive and parents and our own siblings. And then we look at our children and our grandchildren, and I have great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren, some people have, and there you have 7 generations. But I also sometimes pause and say, what happens if you imagine 7 generations out from now into the future? And I played with that in another keynote that I gave, and I imagined, you know, that timing is my great-grandchild's great-grandchild. And so when we were talking about this in the Living Cities, I wrote a few statements that I wanted to share with you today because they relate not only to thinking about a Chronos time, but I'm very curious what you might have to say about a completely different kind of time. So here's just a couple of sentences to give us a framework for our discussion. So I said, imagine that it is 7 generations from now, and this is the generation of your great-grandchild's great-grandchild. This 7th generation is born into a world where the planet Earth is honored and appreciated as a vital, life-giving being, the parent to all life on Earth. Each child is located in a city that knows the city is an organ of Earth. James Lovelock said humans were Gaia's organs of reflection, and I always thought that that related to the cities and that humans were the cells and our organizations were the organelles in this living system. I went on to say, every child knows how to imagine and serve the 7th generation of children who will be born in the future. So they're born as futurists. And every child knows the overview of Earth from its family of solar system planets, which I think you wrote so beautifully about, and the inner view of Earth from the very essence of reflective life arising from Earth's core. Then I asked the question, how was this vision achieved? And I said, well, imagine that the 7th generation from today emerged because the generations who preceded them committed to, first of all, healing the Earth systems. And I said that would be in generations 1 and 2, where we're living now, restoring well-being for Earth system in Earth systems in generations 3 and 4, cohering all life in harmonious Earth ecosystems in generation 5, and manifesting fully alive Earth ecosystems for harmonious flourishing for all life on Earth. That would be generation 6. And I finished by simply saying, this trajectory of aliveness embraces teaching, coaching, modeling, Gaia's code of care, and the unitive narrative for teachers, parents, villages, cities, education systems, in private organizations, in governance systems, and in business, creative, and civil faith organizations for children of all ages. So, Jude, you might notice that there will be some things that you would like to comment in that statement, but I'm going to even give you an extra little bridge that my colleague said, well, that's really inspiring, Marilyn. But you know, when I look at the IPCC reports, the scientists say we do not have 7 generations to make the kinds of changes that you're talking about. So what are we going to do now? And I thought, well, that is an extremely interesting challenge. And I know a really good person who might be able to explore that with me would be Dr. Jude Currivan, who has a whole world view and maybe a different perspective of time. What do you think, Jude?
I think it's a wonderful question and a wonderful invitation, actually, because it really says the choices we make now matter, you know, and it is that sort of sense of how do we serve the good of the whole, not just in this moment, but moving forward. But yes, I'd love to comment on that from a slightly different perspective, because when you were speaking those beautiful words and that wonderful invitation, I was actually going back to the start of our entire universe, 13.8 billion years ago, because what the unitive narrative is showing us and the evidence is showing us is that our universe meaningfully exists and purposefully evolves from simplicity to complexity. And over that vast range of time to ever greater levels of individuated self-awareness, but also awareness of our interdependence. And so it seems to me that, you know, the universe began with an evolutionary impulse that of itself, in its innate sentience, was always looking 7 generations ahead in universal terms. And Gaia has done the same for more than 4 billion years. You know, what I was incredibly wondrous about when writing the story of Gaia was how much there was that prescience, that intention almost, that impulse that supported future complexity, but from the point of decisions, choices, getting it right first time, whether it was the formation of a star or the formation of DNA, that was enabling this onward journey, this onward trajectory of evolutionary consciousness. So the timing of that has been a linear story of 13.8 billion years, but there's also been stages in that journey when things, instead of being sort of sequential, have worked together, have come together in incredible, what's sometimes called reticulate assembly, but also is sometimes called horizontal gene transfer in the sense of biological evolution. And I think that's the sort of moment we're in. So instead of the sort of the idea of things, you know, evolving slowly over long periods of time, there have been incredible key moments in the whole story of our living universe and the story of Gaia as a living planet, where instead of those long, slow evolutionary stages, the innate intelligence, the innate sentience of a living universe and a living planet have come together and created, co-created radical change in a very short period of time. So when you spoke to me of the 7 generations, which of course, honoring Indigenous wisdom is so profound, but also that point, which we don't have 7 human generations to resolve the issues that, in a sense, we have been causative of from that old paradigm of materialism and separation. We're now waking up to remember we're inseparable. And so the unity of narrative is helping to underpin and frame us in unity and diversity and encouraging us to come together. And so by taking the sort of the lessons, the guidance from how Gaia has achieved such radical, revolutionary change in such a short period of time, instead of horizontal gene transfer, I sometimes now talk of horizontal meme transfer, because when we share ideas, which we can now globally, and those ideas speak to us, not just to our heads, but to our hearts and our hands, with this aha awakening, then I feel that those beautiful intentions of what you've written about and living cities, earth, are embodying in all that you're doing. I think we can move much faster. So it's not heal, then restore, then. It's heal and restore and become more coherent and link up and lift up, from this deep, deep awareness that we literally are inseparable, not just from each other, but from our entire home, planetary home, Gaia, and the whole universe. It's such an incredible moment of opportunity and choice. And I think we have the wherewithal to answer that invitation, because the evolutionary impulse of our entire universe, I feel, is flowing through us.
Beautiful, Jude. So I know that we're both well aware, and probably most of our listeners are as well, that the Earth appears to be in kind of what we'd call, if we were using spiral dynamics, a gamma trap, that so much has arisen out of the challenges from climate change, from the virus and the pandemic, from the challenges around carbon neutrality, from the prevalence and creeping war zones, and how the economy seems to be melting down and being very undependable, that it feels like every time we turn around, something we couldn't have imagined yesterday has happened. So we seem to be at a moment in time where, if we don't have a breakthrough, the continuous breakdowns are going to really change life radically, whether we make choices or not. And I know that, like myself, Jude, you're an optimist. And so when people look at all these series of things that seem to have be converging on us to threaten life, how is it that we can even find any optimism in life conditions? I would like to ask you to maybe comment on some of the things that in Living Cities Earth appear to me to be a call to be catalysts for change that enables the healing, the restoration, the coherence, and the manifesting, flourishing life conditions. I remember looking up a little bit about being a catalyst in my earlier career, and it astonished me, and it made me very uncomfortable for quite a while. But I didn't have an authority like you to talk about being a catalyst, or what the actual practice or process of catalysis might be. How does that relate to the time that you're talking about?
Well, thank you. And first of all, I'd say I'm an optimistic realist, and I'm a and there was a tiny little thing I saw yesterday, and it's a sort of a very small example of catalysis, because what catalysis does, it's a catalyst reduces the energetic threshold for a reaction to happen. And it doesn't change itself, so it can be used time and time and time and time again. But in reducing the energetic threshold for reaction, it can speed up processes that could take a huge length of time into a very short period of time. And in biology, a biological catalyst is called an enzyme. And there are enzymes that literally speed up reactions of biological emergence by millions upon millions of times, to enable them to actually be able to happen. So when you speak of catalysts and enzymes, these are crucial. These are the touch points that throughout the story of our entire universe, as well as the story of Gaia, have been key to move it, to being able to enable change, transformational change, revolutionary change to happen. So I do feel that that's very, very important. And I feel we're at a time now, because the evidence that we now have that unity isn't a hope, it's our existential reality, that unity in diversity is the whole world that we are part of, that we are co-creative, microcosmic co-creators of our entire universe and of Gaia. This fundamental reality is now available through us, through the evidence, and it converges with universal wisdom teachings. So for me, this is a catalyst, this realization of our unity and diversity, that we're not just unity and diversity or unity and inclusion, but you talked about every child of every living city knows that they are part of the whole. And I would call that belonging. And we belong. We belong with each other, with our entire planetary home and our entire universe. And so as catalysts or as enzymes, we can share this understanding as widely as possible. We can come together and link up and lift up. You know, I'm doing a lot of work at the moment from a unitive perspective, such a unitive perspective, which the unitive narrative underpins and frames, for unitive economics, unitive education, unitive regeneration, unitive anything in front of it is unitive. Because when we come from that place of unity and diversity, rather than from a place of silos and separation, things can literally transform incredibly rapidly, because that's what catalysis, that's what enzymatic revolutionary evolution does. And I'll just share a tiny little piece. I saw a wonderful program yesterday called Our Changing Planet on BBC. And there are biologists who are trying to restore coral reefs. And so they're taking coral away and they nurture it in little coral creches. But in those little coral creches, when they began to release the tiny little polyps of coral, the coral didn't know what to do. So what they did is they took a microphone and they submerged a microphone near a coral reef. And they found that one type of fish makes a sound that calls the coral where it belongs. So what you saw with that insertion of that sound, the corals just knew where to go, because they had the information, because everything, the basic stuff of reality, is consciousness expressed as meaningful information. Those tiny little coral, when it was silent, they didn't know. But when they heard the invitation of the fish, they knew exactly where to go. We can do this when we learn from Gaia, when we are her students. She knows how to restore herself. She knows how to replenish and regenerate herself. It seems to me, with this new understanding, what we now need to do is open our eyes, our ears, our minds, and our hearts to learn from her and serve her and all of her children, all of our Gaian family as Gaians.
That's so beautiful, Jude. It really opens my heart and invites imagination and creativity instead of being locked into the ways that we've used to think even that genes were not changing. And we learned about epigenetics, and yes, they're changing all the time and responding. But this way that you're framing the catalysis and the enzymes and using the memes instead of the genes, it's a really interesting, all sorts of things are exploding in me. Like I've often heard people even object to James Lovelock's characterizing humans so positively as Gaia's reflective organs. Well, what does that mean? So I hear in you the possibility of, well, we're Gaia's capacity for sharing memes, for expressing her consciousness, for reflecting on what she has created, what she can create, what are the intentions. And maybe you can comment and share if you have any practices that you know that really help strengthen this willingness to listen to Gaia, this capacity for being a catalyst. That sounds like one must have to perhaps surrender a lot of ego that maybe has gotten in our way and gotten us into trouble. Do you have any practices from either wisdom teachings or new teachings that you yourself have discovered?
Well, I think you said it. My mum always used to say, whenever I was getting in my head or getting in my ego, oh, get over yourself. And so what I try to do is show up and get out of the way, because, yeah, we can say, oh, we know it and we're so technologically capable. Now, I agree, that wonderful story about the fish and the coral, we discovered because of technology. So I'm absolutely in awe and applaud technology when it serves the greater good, when it helps us remember that we are, microcosms of a living, evolving universe, and that, it and we have meaning and purpose innately, inherently. So my practices are very simple, because I love, Einstein once said, the universe is as simple as it can be, but no simpler. He also said something about we can't solve problems from the same mindsets that created them. So it seems to me we have a number of invitations here. And if we can answer the invitation to wake up, to consciously evolve, to be catalysts, it seems to me we can become Gaias and our entire universe as co-evolutionary partners. But the practice is to shut up and listen. And we were talking about planting potatoes earlier.
Yes.
We're both gardeners, and for me, my gardening, I learn far more from my garden, from my trees, from my vegetables, from the microbiome of the soil. And I try and shut up and just hear and listen. And I learn so much. And I do feel if we can do that, allied to our technologies, not instead of, for me, it's a both and. We have incredible opportunities to serve Gaia in these 7 generations that we're now bringing into a parallel journey of healing ourselves, because it seems to me that our collective dis-ease has been one of separation.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think it maybe ties into one of my practices. I've come to call it Care Ma Yoga. And it's also something I used to call the Master Code of Care and Gaia Code of Care. But Care Ma Yoga is something that I kind of like the idea that you do this as a practice. And I say to care for yourself so that you can care for others. And together we care for our places and all together care for the planet. So there's a fractal unfolding. And I try to do this practice every day. That is how I set my intentions and how I review how my day has gone. And one of the challenges I'm facing in telling the story of Gaia and using the Living Cities Earth as a new way is how to wake up a planet of living cities. So I'm wondering if what you're suggesting of being quiet and listen is maybe we can intentionally start with Gaia instead of ourselves, to care for the planet first, so that she then unfolds in us how to care for our places, each other, and ourselves. Do you have any wisdom to share about that possibility?
I would just say that this is a very integral way forward, because the old paradigm of materialism and separation has been a very impositional paradigm of dominance. We've sort of said it's about control, and it's about mechanistics, and it's about separation. This is offering us, this is inviting us not just into a very different paradigm, a very different and whole worldview, but it's also inviting us, it seems to me, that it's a both and. We take the best of how that has been, but we bring to it perhaps what might be considered more feminine, or indeed more indigenous, approaches where we attune with and align with the evolutionary impulse as it flows through us. We perceive and experience the world as being emergent. It's not fixed, it's not static. It's living, it's emerging, it's moving, and it's moving through us. And so if we can perhaps bring the best of the past, I'm not saying throw that out at all, but I'm saying to moderate it significantly, to realize that we're not in control. It's a fallacy, just as the separation is an illusion, control is a fallacy. What we can proactively participate in the emergence of an evolutionary living universe, an evolutionary living planetary home, Gaia, fully sentient, not just the biological organisms that she's birthed, but her geology, her minerals, her rocks, her waters, her atmosphere. Because as James Lovelock realized, she exists and evolves as a whole being. And so it's for us to listen to, and the indigenous wisdom teaches us, not just to even our biological brothers and sisters, but to Gaia as an inherent sentience and all those incredible aspects and attributes of her, both in their wonderful differentiation and diversity, but also in their wholeness, and as a member, as an evolutionary participant in a living and evolutionary and living universe.
Thank you, Jude. I love the images that you're creating, and I might describe them sometimes as fractal because they're repeating patterns. Yes. And holographic, of course, because you're an expert in cosmic hologram as well. But what it comes up for me is when I talk with people, I'm not saying that we're working on a project or on a city, and we're not even working with other beings, but we are as the city, we are as Gaia, because when I'm sort of challenged with that, I ask people to come back to the fractalness of their being and their body. Well, you do have a hand, you have eyes, you have ears, and they're part of a whole. And we know both through our science and our traditional thinking and spirituality that these are beautifully synchronized with one another, and they're coming through us if we, as you suggest, pause and listen and actually manage to articulate the messages that can come through. So Jude, I really appreciate this exploration of bringing time into both synchrony and giving us the opportunity of what I would say is some synergistic evolution, that we actually have the opportunity to catalyze faster time, maybe even jump time, as Jean Houston says, and bring it into a completely different relationship than we have sort of on our day-to-day calendars. So I'd like to ask if there's anything else you'd like to share with us on Earth Day. What's coming up through your heart and soul and spirit?
Yes. This is a science of love, Marilyn. You know, what we love, we care about. So this is the science of love that shows us that we literally are loved by the entire universe and by our beloved planetary home. So to offer love, you know, this reciprocity, this gorgeous word Aini, that the Quechua people of South America, this mutuality, because we do belong, we are loved. So let us in turn love and care for ourselves, for each other, for our planetary home. We talk at Whole World View, as you well know, act local, whatever that means, you know, feel global and think cosmic.
That's perfect. That is what we need to just really soak in that today and feel the love and the consciousness, and that we can think cosmic, feel global, and act local. Thank you, Jude. It's just been a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you so much. And happy Earth Day, everyone.
Happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day. Wow. Marilyn, Jude, thank you so much for this enriching and beautiful exploration. two of the world's luminaries have come together in an online fashion, but we felt your presence as if it was right here, right now. So again, thank you for this opportunity to connect with the wisdom and clarity, and also, I would say, very fresh perspectives for many of us. So everybody who is watching it on YouTube or will be watching in recording, thank you for joining us. We are going through the amazing day, the Earth Day celebration by Living Cities Earth and many, many wonderful partners who came together to create this program for you. And we'll have just 1 minute break for everybody who needs to take a cup of tea or some water. And in 1 minute, we start our next session, which is a keynote presentation from one of the co-founders of the Living Cities Earth, a founder of Integral City Meshworks, an author, practitioner, and a beautiful human being, Marilyn Hamilton. So we'll just have a 1 minute break, and then we come together for our keynote presentation. Wow, you have made it. You just watched amazing insights from experts of Living Cities Earth ecosystem. We welcome you to the Living Cities Earth experience and hope that we are going for a long ride as we take care of ourselves, our communities, our cities, and our planet. Thank you and welcome.